Thank you everyone for coming. And I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of Enables. Enables is the National Acquired Brain Injury in Learning and Education Syndicate, and we're a group or a collaboration of professionals from across the UK. So our members are from the NHS and the voluntary sector. Some of them are providers of neurorehabilitation, also from non-profits like myself, from UKBIF, and from academia. So our focus is on raising awareness of acquired brain injury in the education system. And 2 years ago, we established an experts by experience group who named themselves as Yeah Baby. It stands for Young Experts with Experience in Acquired Brain Injury. It's quite a nice little acronym. And so their role is to steer our direction. And when we told them about ITBIS, they were really clear that they wanted to have a voice here during this conference and the opportunity to share their thoughts. So a few meetings later, and they pulled together a presentation for us, and we've given them the opportunity, or we've been given the opportunity for them to open this symposium. So we're really thankful to our colleagues for joining us today to deliver key messages around co-production within research and practice. It's something that's really central to what we like to do. But before we hear from Rachel and Shannon and Jenny and Adele, our young people are going to introduce this session. We're going to finish with some discussion and questions that they've posed to us as clinicians and researchers. So please be ready for those at the end of the session.
There are so many aspects of your recovery where, as a young person, you often don't feel that your voice is necessarily heard, especially because when you are really in the thick of it, when you're really poorly, your parents have to advocate on your behalf. And so actually being able to be involved now and to be involved in research and development for other young people feels that our voice is now heard, that we are able to advocate for ourselves and to have our own opinion and our own narrative over our own condition. And I think that is really empowering.
Having the chance to share your voice and feel valued and learning from each other, I feel proud to be a part of this group so I can help make a difference for young people faced with acquired brain injuries and possibly make their transition back into education positive. I've gained so many lifelong friends from it. It is nice to connect with people who have been through something similar to me.
When we're involved in research, it shows us that we're not alone, that we're being heard and seen, and it helps us learn about things too, from researchers, from professionals, but also from each other, in the way that we each deal with things, the methods we use, in how strong and enthusiastic we still can be, despite what we have to go through just to get up and out in the mornings. To have a hand, to have a voice, means that we can try and help and make sure the right things are discussed, things that will impact correctly and effectively on the ground. And to know we aren't alone in doing it, in trying to use our negative experiences for an emboldened quest of making things better for others, of changing the world. To be involved is to be empowered.
Anyone can listen, but it's about hearing and acting, hearing us, but also our families too. There needs to be a range of voices and making sure the right people are involved so a plan and informed action can take place in the future.
Think about that in a kind of as a spider's web. And so you have young people at the centre informing research and policy makers who then develop the research and the policy, and that goes out to service providers. All of these lines of communication, this web of communication, is really important so that when the service providers at the edge of the web are going out and assisting young people who have suffered an ABI, but if there isn't a good connection there, then the services won't be up to the standards that is required or up to the standards that they could be. So I think that's what's really important, is remembering all those different webs of communication that are required.
In that, it's so important to remember that even a tremor at the edge of a spider's web makes waves at the centre. So making sure those waves are good ones. If you whispered something to one person, then they pass it through 10 other people, and ask the last person to repeat what you'd whispered to the first, how accurate would it be? And how risky is it to hope that those 10, 11 people have accurately understood and engaged with it? That said, you can also make sure that those 10 people are the right ones, are the people close to the person with the ABI, are the ones who have listened, are the ones that work with them, etc. You wouldn't ask a turtle what it feels like for a bird to fly. To help us spread our wings ourselves.
Having an ABI is scary at any age, but in particular for children and their families. This is the first time that many of them have had to deal with something of this magnitude, or with the NHS system needing special educational needs or support. Don't assume or presume that they know what to do to get help. For them, it's like being in the middle of an ocean, abandoned with no life raft. So please communicate clearly, always ask for the input from friends, family, also the persons themselves. Don't assume that just because you've got a professional education, you know better. Try walking a day in our shoes, then reassess your beliefs.
If you're developing research and you're not asking those questions of what is the priority to these young people, what is it that they require, what can we do to assist the research in enabling them better later down the line, then, what's the purpose of the research really? It's like, if you had a heart surgeon and they had never seen a heart before, would you really trust them? Or if they'd never read a textbook on hearts, or the person who wrote the textbook on the hearts had never seen a heart before, you wouldn't trust any of that. So why would you trust a piece of research where the people who are actually affected by the condition have not been involved in its development?
Actually involving the people that are impacted by an ABI is important, as you are getting a first-hand review of what is and isn't working, and we can let you know what is helping us develop.
We want to spread awareness about what is important for outcomes for young people with acquired brain injuries when returning back into education. We would like to share the physical challenges we have, like neurofatigue, and how that impacts us in educational settings. It is important to involve people who know can make the actual difference to success and failure in making a difference.
Without involving us, you might look at X when really we'd beg you to look at Y. Everything is an educated guess. But you're here, you're in these areas of work or interest, and that's because you're just that, interested in the field, in the people it affects. So why would you not want to hear from us? We spend so much of our time feeling like our voices are not heard. Like we're the ones with the actual experience, but we're pushed to the back, talked about rather than talked to. So be the ear that listens, and be the hand that pulls us forwards.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you to our young people. So just to introduce our first speaker, Rachel Keatley, who's going to talk about holding children and young people with acquired brain injury, families and stakeholders at the heart of research.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's really lovely to be here and be able to share a bit of my journey over the course of the last, 5 years of doing a PhD, but this stems right back from being a children's physio in a clinical service. Oh, what happened there? There we go. Yeah, got it. Yeah, so I work for Nottingham Children's Hospital and I've been the children's physio for about 20 years. And so my research experience and progress since then has stemmed from those clinical patient interactions with families and the clinical challenge that you had about having rehabilitated a child and then the challenge of reintegrating back into life and into school, into sports and activities after an ABI. And that might have been within a consultation, but generally speaking, it was when the patients had popped back in to see a consultant in clinic and then just happened to come down the corridor to come and see us. And they'd be like, so, yeah, it's going really well, but I can't do this. And how do I do this? And, you're in the middle of a corridor. And so that was the thing that really sparked for me, something I wanted to look at more. Fast forward a little bit, I went off and did a master's and then after that we did a service evaluation of the Brill service in Nottingham, and as part of that we did a family feedback forum with 4 families came to that and some others did a questionnaire, and I invited one of the young people that had been through the service, whose name's Victoria. She's happy for me to share that information with you today, and I asked her to help me run that session, and she told me what she wanted it to be like and what needs to be involved. Top on the priority was pizza. There must be pizza. And we wanted to find out what was working well and what wasn't. And so she said, well, you have to do it how we do feedback at school. What works well, the 3 W's, and an ABI, even better if. And that's how we did it, because that's what the young people will understand. And so we did that. And what came out of that was, again, this challenge around long-term participation needs, the trouble about getting back to sport and exercise and their activities, problems with getting to school, but also the parental burden. So the parents came as well, and that battle for what they need, and that they felt like they were falling off a cliff. And this was particularly in the group of children who weren't plugged into community services because they didn't have a motor deficit and they hadn't met the criteria for community services. So from that, I ended up applying for a PhD. And central to that was, for me as a clinician, was to make sure I'd got that patient and public involvement all the way through, following the UK standards for public involvement that the NIHR have produced, and wanted to make sure that the families were central to it and that their voices were my words that I was writing. So 4 families were consulted on the PhD design, and Victoria carried on being involved at every stage, right through the design, through the research questions. She helped the families, piloted the questionnaires. Victoria analysed the results with me and has helped with the dissemination and is a co-author on the paper that we've got in at the minute with one of the journals. The primary data collection was all about their voices as well. So there were survey responses. So we had 95 responses from 51 families. So that's a mixture of children and parents, really telling us what their experiences were, both through filling in outcome measures, but also in what their goals were and how they, the issues that they'd had in the years after brain injury. I did 20 interviews with children and their parents. And then also importantly, because I am one of them, I wanted to involve the stakeholders and the health, education, social care, charity professionals that are involved in supporting the child and that team around the child, and find out the issues that they had as well and how we could all work together to make things better. And that led to a co-design workshop at the end of the project, which was around idea and solution generation for what to dealing with the issues that we'd found. If you want to find out more about this, then I'm presenting on this tomorrow, so you need to come back at the end, the last session tomorrow. So this is just briefly to say that that's the co-design workshop that we did. There's a small group of the participants there. We had a great day. Emily was there. 17 participants, so from representing children and parents, all of those stakeholder groups. We had members of the research team there, the study steering group. We had Victoria was there, and we had a facilitator and a play specialist, and it was a brilliant morning. I presented the findings from the research and the key issues, and then that was basically over to them. Like, what can we do to make this better? What do you need? So we broke out into groups, and we had a children's and young people's group that was focused around independence and what do I need to help me? They Lego involved in that and all sorts. Parent support needs was around looking at peer support and emotional well-being. And again, what did they need? How could we facilitate that? What resources did they need? And then another group which had the biggest challenge, which was around the pathways and how the pathways work. Gemma's laughing. I mean, the web that is, and trying to unpick that. Groups all fed back to each other, and then there was time to get to know each other, to mix, and of course, because Victoria was involved, there was pizza involved, and along with a buffet. That's just some of the data. I had acres of words, and we made sure that we'd recorded it, that we'd written it down, and that I could then take that away. And you can come and hear about that all tomorrow. So it was a brilliant day, but it's not without its issues, its pitfalls and its limitations. Recruitment was so hard and so slow. Family life is busy, especially when there are adult needs, and some of these families are just so overwhelmed. As easy as we tried to make it, it was still really hard to get those survey responses in particularly. It's really difficult to get everybody in the same place at the same time. I thought I'm going to have this lovely PPI group. We'll all be able to meet regularly. No, had to do it all individually because you can't even do it, even online. It was really difficult. The difficulty ensuring that everyone gets to speak in a group format, so both within the stakeholder group and within the code design workshop was, some people participate because they've got a lot that they want to say, and trying to make sure that we managed that to give the people who were a bit quieter the chance to speak. And so that was about using the chat function or whiteboards with the online groups, or post-it notes and lots of paper in the in-person group. Achieving equality, diversity, inclusion, so making sure that it was representative, is again really hard. Even when you think you've done it, the unexpected happens. And like those 3 quotes or 3 emails I received the day before saying, like, we're not going to make it. And one on the actual day, in that the family tried to get there, and then the young person with significant cognitive needs had a little meltdown in the car park, and they just couldn't come in. And that was really upsetting, that they just went away and couldn't get through the door. So it's a tricky thing to do. Holding the same PPI representatives for the length of the project, that didn't happen. They changed because their priorities changed. And so I had to keep kind of re-recruiting. Other than Victoria that went all the way through, the other families came and went. And resources, I was fortunate. I had some funding within my PhD to be able to hold a session, and I'd got money to be able to hire a room and refreshments and pay expenses and things, but that is another barrier. But I think the other thing that I learned was that actually COVID forced me to go online for some of mine, and that worked really well, and that's cheap. The successes were that we did manage to have children, parents and stakeholders involved throughout the whole stage, and that's been really positive and really helpful, even right down to writing an academic paper with Victoria. They feel that they've had their voices heard and listened to, and I think that's from a quote from Victoria directly, saying having our say and feeling heard has been invaluable, and it's something I will treasure forever, knowing that I've been part of something that can make an impact in the future. People were keen to participate and they want to carry on. They're saying, please come back to me, want to do more of this, we've really enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, the PhD study outcome and the intervention that we've made is theirs, and it's co-designed, it's what they want and what they've asked for, and that's really important. I think the biggest thing for me was the unpredicted benefits. I was focused around data collection, making sure everybody was happy, comfortable, and happy to participate. And then these quotes here, the one on the left-hand side. Hi, Rachel. I just wanted to say what an amazing, absolutely amazing time we both had last week. We were both really nervous on the way, but we had the most uplifting, inspiring, and positive few hours. The value of speaking to other mums and meeting other children was just brilliant for us both. I know it must have taken a lot of organisation, but it was incredible that so many professionals were there. It's rarely out of my line of vision, but knowing she was safe with trained medical professionals was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders and a huge confidence booster for her. So thank you. We absolutely loved being part of it. So there were several families there. And I think the other one was one of the participants in the stakeholder focus group that said she felt like she'd been in a support group meeting and could do it again next week. So for me, the question Chloe posed was, what is the difference about putting lived experience at the heart of research and practice? And it ties in with that, what the young people were saying about a web. It's the thread that holds it all together. And for me, every time I got overwhelmed with doing the PhD and the processes and the academic side of things, actually bringing it back to the children and the young people and making sure it's their voices that are my words that are now in a thesis. And yeah, that's the important message from me.
Fine. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. We're going to do all the questions at the end. So we're going to move straight on to our next speaker. So I'd like to welcome Shannon Scratch from Holland Bloorview Kids Rehab.
Thanks so much. It's so nice to see so many people here this morning. It's lovely. Let's see if I can make this work. Is it going to move? Yay. Okay. Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me here. I'm a clinician scientist, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more as scientist Shannon today and some of the things that we're doing from a research perspective. Sorry if you've heard this before, but Bloorview is Canada's largest pediatric rehab hospital, and we have an embedded research institute as well and fully affiliated with the University of Toronto. Ontario is pretty large, and Toronto has about 6.5 million people in it at the moment. It is the unceded land of many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island and remains a meeting place there. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. And Bloorview actually serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous people from a rehab perspective across Ontario. Now, I want to start with an important message from somebody that was a youth partner on a previous project.
Hi, my name is Patricia Knapp. I was an outpatient at home in Bloorview for a couple years due to persisting concussion symptoms. I was involved in the Move and Connect pilot, as well as being involved in the research team in developing the web-based program. Being part of a research team, I felt very seen and heard, as though my opinion mattered. I think it's important that families are involved in research because said families are the ones this research could be helping. I think that as wonderful and necessary as researchers are, families can provide a lived experience insight that would otherwise be missed. I think that the most important thing that researchers can do involving family is just listen, let people share their experiences, and learn from them.
She was really lovely to work with. So a bunch of years ago, probably pushing 10 now, we had a new strategic plan at the hospital that tried to really integrate family voices through research and through our clinical practice. And in 2013, we started a research family engagement committee. And the goal here is to support authentic and meaningful engagement of clients and families in the research process. And it's a monthly meeting, and it's co-chaired by a family leader and a scientist, and people will present their research. So whether it's a PhD student presenting a new idea or a scientist presenting a potential grant or coming back and talking about dissemination strategies, it's really an open kind of forum for people to kind of chat with families. And there's quite a few families that show up to this. I'd say monthly, there's about 20, and it kind of rotates through. And it's all done on Zoom now, which is great. I was really proud to be the scientist co-chair for this for a few years, and just to see this evolve and to see how it's evolved through COVID has been wonderful. And they try their best to track, monitor, and evaluate some QI metrics. If you know us at Bloorview, and probably me as a person, I do like a little bit of a framework. And so we built one out here for how we conceptualize family engagement and youth engagement in research. So this framework is free and available online through our website. And the objective is to enable family engagement in all aspects of the research process. So we tried to lay out the process as far as think, plan, do, share, and use. And I'll go through that in a little bit more. And there are 3 different main family roles. So if you look at this in your own time, if you want to, we kind of describe that a lot, as well as some activities that people might be involved in. This framework has a few guiding principles, and it's inclusiveness, co-develop, which we talk about a lot at this conference so far, transparency, support, and mutual respect. So these are the things that we're trying to bring to the table both ways, right? In a bi-directional relationship from families to researchers and the other way around. So here, what we've done in the framework is lay things out so that at each stage we show potential actions and potential roles that people can have. So if you're a family advisor, they often advise or provide insight at a single point during a research process. So they'll come in and help maybe with a grant review, or they'll come in and help with an REB review, something like that, with looking over lay summaries or something in that way. A partner is usually an active member of the research team. So they join in and they take part in a lot of the activities, of course, across the life cycle of a project. And they have this new role now that's an educator. And this is often a family or a youth that will come into the research lab and talk about their experiences. And this has been really important for some of the labs in the hospital that aren't clinically integrated. So some of our engineering labs or some of our biomechanic labs, and families will come, youth will come and talk about their experiences. And it's been really meaningful for especially for the PhD students in those groups. So I'm going to talk about one of our projects. This is R2 Play. Just a quick overview. It's a dynamic multi-domain assessment that we've built, aims to simulate sport demands, and we've engaged youth throughout the entire process. I'm going to blow by that because a little plug for me, I will talk about that tomorrow if you want to hear more about how we designed it. But what I want to talk about is how we've engaged youth throughout the project. And a big thank you to our PhD candidates. They are these two are amazing, but they're really intentional in how they try and think about involving families and thinking about involving youth. So if we're looking at our framework, one of the ways that we involve youth in this project in the think stage was grants. And it's kind of an intimidating one for families to be involved in. It's a pretty big scientific document. And so we really try and encourage them to think about what they're going to contribute to that. So we lay it out, please look at the lay summaries, please look at the summaries of this. What do you think? What do you think about the method? And so we leave targeted questions in the grant for them to help give feedback too, so it doesn't seem as intimidating, because it can be. I mean, they're intimidating for me to read, so I understand why somebody would feel like that. This, without doubt, is always noticed by reviewers. So if you're a researcher in the room, if you say we've had families review this, families comment on this, I get reviews all the time back saying that that was an important piece of the process. So people are looking for this now. And one of our students, Josh Shore, is actually writing a grant at the moment with a youth leader focused on building youth engagement strategy for this project. So they're going to try and get some money in order to do this a little bit more effectively, which is great. When we're planning our projects, we have youth, sometimes it's a volunteer, a youth leader, and they often read our research ethics protocols and will pilot our protocols for us. And they give some pointed feedback about how we're running our study, how we're thinking about even explaining our study to them, consent forms, and try and troubleshoot some of this piece. It's been really helpful to think about how best to approach families, how a youth wants to be explained about their role. And so that's always something that we intentionally involve people in. For the do phase, we usually have a youth team member across all of our projects, and they are invited to come to every meeting and often do. They often write our papers with us as well. And they've had some really great input about recruitment procedures, about, again, approaching people and approaching youth. And they're very actively involved in our Slack channels for our projects as well. They're up there answering things. It's great. For share, we think about KT products here. So what are we sharing that's client-facing, participant-facing, youth-facing? And we have youth help us build these and comment on these. And I'm going to show you an example of something we've built. That's everything from research posters, which they often co-present with us, especially at local conferences, infographics, videos, and they will identify other products that we should be designing, things that we didn't think about. And again, I'll show you one in a second. Acknowledging fully, my lab is still pretty new, and so we're not at the point of implementing yet, and I hope we will soon. But our hope is that our youth will be engaged in that process as well, about how we think about implementing the products that we've designed or the research findings back to clinic and back to a useful stage. So again, these kind of things make you pause and think about how to intentionally involve youth in the work that you're doing. So here, I'm just going to end with a little bit of a KT product that we've designed. And this was from one of our youth leaders. We showed him the consent form and he was what is this? This is terrifying. Can we simplify this in a way that explains the study and that lays everything out for us in a simple way? And he sat down with the grad students, they wrote the entire thing out, they designed it all on Canva, and now this is something that we're using. You can't obviously replace our consent form, but using as a way to kind of explain to youth what we're up to. So I'm going to give you a snapshot of just the beginning of it, and you'll meet Brian. Brian's been wonderful. We talk about lived experience. His is interestingly as a really good friend. He had a bunch of friends that had concussion, that had a really hard time after, that had to leave sport. And so he found our lab because he wanted to make things better for his friends, which I thought was like really sweet. So it doesn't just have to be lived experience of somebody that has had that, but often that's just going to be a powerful advocate for the community. So here's Brian and me. Unfortunately, you're going to hear more from me, Brittany. Hello, I'm Dr. Shannon Scratch, a neuropsychologist and researcher at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital in Toronto. I work with kids who have had brain injuries like concussions. I help kids get back to activities after injury.
Hi there, my name is Brian and I'm a high school student and hockey player. I work with Dr. Scratch and her research team as a youth advisor. This means I help test out their ideas and make sure their research is meaningful for kids and teens.
So that's just the welcome part of it. It goes on and explains what it is, but he helped design all that and write it all and made it in a way that was accessible for other youth. So I guess the message is intentionally involving. It's never going to be perfect, but it's just kind of pausing and thinking about it. Acknowledging all the beautiful people I get to work with and represent. Thank you. And you can always check us out here. This is our LinkedIn page. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Shannon. So our next speaker is Jennifer Lundine from Ohio State University. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I am very happy to be here and appreciate being invited to share a different perspective on involving key partners in the development of a program. As we've heard, both family members, young people with brain injury, and as Shannon just introduced, also other key advocates and key players that are a part of that. And I'm here to talk to you about a new program at the university where I am, The Ohio State University, in the Midwestern part of the US. We are in the largest city in our state, the capital city of our state. And our program is called OSU Brain Care. And this is a survivor and family participation group that we are literally having our second session for today. So this is very new, and I'm excited to share part of our development program with you. And also importantly, want to acknowledge funding from an initiative at our university, the Chronic Brain Injury Initiative, that has funded the beginning of this program and allows us to buy food for our advisory board, as Rachel talked about, which is very important. And also gratitude to my research and clinical partners who are helping develop this. And of course, our advisory board that I will talk more about today. So OSU Brain Care is a group that's focused on these four key features: communication, advocacy, research, and education. At our university, we have a free clinical program for persons with aphasia, which many of you are probably familiar with, so a very language-focused difficulty that people often following stroke experience, but we have nothing that covers those cognitive communication aspects following brain injury. And we know that this is something that individuals with brain injury often lack the support for. And so we wanted to devise something that supported those individuals. Many of them would come to our aphasia initiative group, but weren't quite getting the right support that they needed because their needs are different than those who have specific language impairments. So OSU Brain Care is it's offered free to our participants, and we're offering it as a speech therapy program. However, we have the support of other groups in our university like social work, occupational therapy, medical dietetics. And we are offering this as a group for individuals who have difficulty with cognition and communication. It's led by a speech language pathologist, but we also have students involved in this group. So we have graduate students in speech language pathology who are providing direct clinical services to our participants. We also have audiology students who are in the AUD program who are providing auditory processing and hearing assessments for all of our participants. We have graduate students from the College of Social Work who are there to support our participants. And we also have undergraduate students who are involved in this as a service learning course as a part of their undergraduate curriculum. So this can give them observation hours, but also begins to expose them to the challenges that brain injury can lead to for individuals in our community. And one of the important parts of building this program is our implementation science focus as well. So we have an implementation science researcher who is helping to make sure that as we develop this program, we're focusing on feasibility and appropriateness and fidelity as well, so that we can hopefully extend this program to other after or as we grow it in our program as well. So as part of today's symposium, I'm focusing on the advisory board that we've developed for OSU Brain Care. And not only are we involving persons with lived experience with acquired brain injury and their family partners, but also those who provide care in the community. Because if we need to expand the way we can deliver services in the community, we need to make sure we have those key partners involved as well. How can we extend the care that we receive? What are the barriers that you face in referring patients, finding service providers, and those kinds of challenges? So as a part of our advisory board, we have an adult male who was injured 12 years ago, and an adult woman who was injured while she was a teenager, and her parents as well. We have social workers and rehabilitation physicians and therapists who are working in the community serving people with brain injury. And then we also have research and clinical partners from our university clinic. So again, as I shared, this project is really just in its infancy. We began this summer with our first advisory board meeting. And with those key partners, we asked important questions like, what are the barriers to implementation? Why aren't you getting services that you might feel that you need? Who else should be at this table that we don't have currently? What needs do exist for care partners, for survivors, for families in the community? And what are we missing? What are the possible pitfalls to developing a program like this and extending it to make it actually work? And some of the important perspectives that came out in this meeting was thinking about the timing and the length of our group sessions. So were we holding these sessions in the morning? Was an hour and a half too long? Was it going to be too fatiguing for individuals? Are they going to be able to come if they have work? But if we have it at the end of the day, after a day of work, what does that mean for our survivors? Thinking about the resources that are available and how we keep them current, but also accessible. So the QR code that was on the earlier slide will link you to our website, which also is in its infancy. So please stay tuned, keep checking. But we are building that with our advisory board input to make sure that the resources we have on there are updated. How do we keep those updated, but also, again, accessible so that users might find them useful? How do we include care partners and family members? Do survivors want their care partners in their group meetings, or do they want something separate for them? Is there a way that we can involve them in a way that is meaningful and helpful to both the care partners, but also to the survivors? And one of the things that I thought was really awesome that came from this was that survivors talked about being mentors to other survivors, and that they wanted to be a part of this group so that they could share their own experiences and not just be a part of the group, but also mentor other survivors. And also that they wanted this group to be solution and not problem focused. So we're not, I mean, of course, as a therapist, we're there setting goals, but really we're here to create solutions, to help them find solutions and get to the solutions that they might find useful in their life. We're not just focused on problems. And one of the quotes that I thought was really impactful was from Eric, who was the adult survivor of an acquired brain injury. And he said, being part of a support group makes me feel like something is wrong with me. I want to be a part of a group where I am accepted, not supported because I am different. And I asked his permission to share that, but I thought it was so meaningful because what he was saying is, I don't just want to be here and talk about my problems. I want to solve problems. I want to help other people solve problems because I've maybe found something that works for me and they might find works for them in their life. And so I think that is a really fabulous perspective to keep us grounded in the lived experiences of individuals with brain injury. So again, the question that we're asking as a part of this symposium is, why is this different? What is different about including these perspectives? And OSU Brain Care, I hope, we're using these perspectives of both survivors, but also key community partners who are out, in the trenches, providing these services to help us inform development and implementation in a meaningful way, in a way that can be meaningful to all of those different players. So again, we are having our second meeting today, so it's a couple hours from now back in Ohio. The first meeting was amazing. Everyone was very positive about this group. One of the things that I thought was most exciting was an undergraduate student came to me and said, because she had been in the aphasia initiative previously, and said, oh my gosh, suddenly I see why individuals with brain injury and their challenges are different than people with aphasia. So again, an undergraduate student who's trying to put these pieces together pre-clinically and now sees this difference. And the goal that the participants set last week for this first semester, so this is a project-based activity that they will be working on telling their brain injury story in whatever way that works for them, whether it's making a video or writing it down, but helping them to tell their stories, which is very exciting. So a couple websites for you to check out. Again, the Brain Care website is still being developed, so give us grace. But I look forward to sharing more with you about this program as we develop. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll just move along to our final speaker. So I'd like to welcome Edel Janek Svensson from Sunas Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you. I will be presenting a talk under the title Exploring Co-Production and Participation in the Child in Context Intervention Study. My name is Edel Janek Svensson and I'm a pediatric nurse, researcher and postdoc in the Child in Context Intervention Study. I have no conflict of interest. I have nothing to disclose. And the aim is then to present how participants in the Child in Context Intervention, which we have developed, have experienced participation and co-production. The Child in Context Intervention is an individualized, goal-oriented intervention for children with a pediatric acquired brain injury in the chronic phase and their families. And it's conducted mainly through telerehabilitation. The intervention consists of 7 online family sessions, a one-day parent seminar, and 4 school meetings over a 5-month period. Participation in co-production was something that we strived towards, both when developing and conducting the intervention, but also part of the end goal to increase and enhance children's involvement and participation in their everyday life. In the CC, we first asked the children and the parents about what do they experience as challenging in their everyday life. Based on these, we worked on individualized SMART goals, This is in contrast to some other interventions, which often have pre-decided areas to work with families that they target in an intervention. Teachers were also important stakeholders in CC and very important co-producers. We met with school personnel addressing the child's challenges at school, creating a shared understanding, and found ways to deal with school-related issues. We arranged parent seminars which were led by a therapist and a parent which also had received the CC intervention. CC has been developed in accordance with the MRC framework for developing of complex interventions. And this is an overview of this framework. User experience within this framework is considered very important in every step to prevent research waste and to hinder development of intervention that is too extensive to deliver for those who are going to deliver it, or unwanted or less interesting or useful to the end users, the child and family. In this presentation, I will focus on children, parents, and teachers' experiences in the feasibility phase and in the evaluation phase. Yeah, that was what you had time for. The feasibility study included 6 children aged 11 to 16 years with ABI diagnosis, their families, and their schools. We interviewed them about acceptability, added value, and participation, and also had them fill out different forms about this. Parents generally found the intervention to be rewarding, useful, and relevant, but both children and parents thought that all the assessment we put them through was too extensive. Their experience varied regarding which component of this intervention they found most helpful. Some parents appreciated the entire program, finding it comprehensive and beneficial. Others valued the new information they gained about managing their child's condition. Some thought the use of the SMART scales were particularly helpful to structure their pathways. And the collaboration between the families and intervention team and schools were highlighted by also some of the families to be the most important components. The parents experienced that they could decide what challenges to work with and experience high level of participation. Children experienced with participating in the CC were generally positive, but varied. While many children felt listened to and appreciated being able to influence their goals and strategies, the children ratings of acceptability was lower than the parents. Some children thought it was boring, I think this is boring, and engaged less. Despite the positive feedback, keeping children engaged and motivated throughout the intervention was sometimes challenging, especially the youngest and the teenagers. This is a citation from a child. I felt that I could be a part of the decision, one child said. Teachers had a generally positive experience, but they also faced some challenges. Teachers found the intervention acceptable and useful for supporting their students, but they expressed a desire for a better meeting plan to fit with their busy schedules. Finding time for them to arrange meetings was a significant challenge. Teachers emphasized the importance of involving school leaders more in the intervention planning to facilitate this. The digital format was especially appreciated, making it easier for this group of participants to participate despite these time constraints. And this is also a quote from a teacher. When I said something was impossible to do, we looked at other suggestions and agreed on something that was possible. So, consequences of participation in co-production and the feasibility, what to keep and then what to adjust moving on to the next phase was a question we asked. Well, it was feasible, acceptable, had a high goal attainment. Parents had variant opinions to what components of the intervention were most helpful, suggesting to keep this flexible approach and to keep going forward with all these components. We reduced, obviously, the assessment burden. And to keep the children more engaged and motivated throughout the intervention was challenging. So strategies to try to enhance this could be beneficial, but so difficult because of this digital format, middle of the COVID and so forth. but it resulted in a more flexible attitude from us to including the children in the participation in the session, making it not mandatory. Overall, the study highlighted that while participants felt their voices heard and valued, there were areas for improvement to enhance both engagement and effectiveness. Changes to the final RCT manual were then made, moving on to the next phase. Moving on from the feasibility, we are currently at the end of evaluating CC. Some of you may have heard the talk yesterday about the effector results, and we are working on a process evaluation, which also was on the poster session today. I will return to one of the aims we had with CC now, namely the experience of children about participation in daily life at home and in school. Our collaborative partner, StartPed, with the special educator and researcher Eli Kili, has conducted a separate study regarding participation of children with ABI. 6 trials of children, parents and teachers from the CC intervention group was interviewed about their participation in education, social setting, and the challenges faced by parents and teachers and the potential value of collaborative efforts in accommodating children's participation. This is a brief overview of the results. Fatigue significantly impacts children's participation in educational and social activities, leading to decreased attendance and involvement from children. Both individually and environmental factor contributes to this issue, with children needing designated rest periods during the school day. Children use various strategies to try to fit in and participate in school activities, such as working with specific classmates only, avoiding certain situations at school, and seeking support from teachers or peers. These strategies varied based on age, gender, and individual circumstances. Parents and teachers face challenges in managing fatigue and promoting participation due to limited resources and the need for continuous adaptation of these needs. Ensuring adequate rest while maintaining academic and social engagement is really a complex matter for these children. Both parents and teachers emphasize the need for timely knowledge and support regarding the injury. Increased understanding and collaboration, as seen in the CC study, have improved the quality of school life and participation for children with PABI. I will give a separate talk about this study in more detail tomorrow if you want to come then. So CC seem to have facilitated experience of participation to some degree in the child's context as intended, but through increased experience participation in co-production during the intervention session as well, and have also affected how the CC intervention is now looking performed. Thank you for your time and attention. I would like to also thank all participating children, parents and teachers, as well as this great skilled research team. So thank you.